So I'm joined by my former teammate, longtime friend, travel basketball teammate from way, way
Oh,
back
yeah,
in the day,
going way
Jacob
back.
OConnell. He's currently playing at Princeton right now, and you also got the opportunity to play on the Slovakian national team this summer. Jake, how are you? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Doing good. No problem, man. Come on anytime. Like, love doing this stuff with you guys, talking how everybody's doing. So right now you're playing at Princeton, one of the best schools in the world, one of the great basketball program too. Can you like why did you choose to go to Princeton?
For me, it honestly, like when I was getting recruited, like this, I don't know how it happened, but just somehow with Princeton, like it was kind of like the stars aligned. Like it's, close to home, great basketball, unbelievable academics. The coaches really liked me. They thought my play style fit really well. So it ended up being like a perfect fit. I got to know the guys on the team before I even got here really well. So like it just a lot of these things, seem to, you know, fit me perfectly. And I'm so happy, I ended up at Princeton. It's been, playing basketball here has been an unbelievable experience so far.
Yeah, you guys had a good year. You guys have a great program going over there. Like, were there any other schools though that you were considering other than Princeton?
I mean, I was considering, just because of my academics, like a lot of Ivy League schools were
Mhm.
recruiting me. So like Columbia and Brown both were like the options that I was strongly considering. But like I said, Princeton was probably the school that recruited me the hardest, the school that fit me the best, the closest to home, the best program. Like it all just worked out really perfectly. And yeah, like I said, just glad that I ended up here because I feel like it was definitely the right spot for me.
I feel that because like for me, I chose Muhlenberg because it was far enough away from home where it wasn't like in the backyard of my house, but it was
Yeah,
also like my parents can come up to games. I can
yeah,
go home
exactly.
like whenever I want. Like, and Princeton's obviously a great school, so like it's like the perfect situation for everything.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like,
and obviously, yeah, Muhlenberg's really good too. So yeah, it seems
mm,
like you've got kind of a similar deal over there as well.
yeah, very very similar. So like last year, how did the basketball season work out? Like with COVID and like it getting canceled, like how did that all happen? Like how did you hear about that?
So I won't lie, my whole team knew that the Ivy League, like, they were the first to cancel the conference tournament back when COVID first started. Um, and we kind of knew that they were going to be like super conservative when it came to handling COVID. So like we all kind of had the idea in the back of our heads, like, shoot, we feel like there's a pretty decent chance that, our season could just not happen and get canceled. Especially when like they told us the fall semester would be online last year. They told us that like football was canceled in the fall. We're like, shoot, there might be like a real risk of our season just not happening. But we kind of tried to stay optimistic because what a lot of people did, especially in the Ivy League, was because this was kind of like a league wide, like we had that fear as like, even guys from other schools in the league. Like a lot of guys would take the year off of school and like take a gap year so that they could preserve their eligibility and because you can't play as a grad student in the Ivy League, so they could play all 4 of their years at their same school. A lot of guys on our team actually chose not to do that. We only had, I think, like 2 guys who chose to take a gap year. Um, and so what it effectively meant is that like we all got to kind of be together. So the fall semester, everything was online. No one lived on campus. Like we hung out together a couple of times, just like randomly. That it just happened to work out that we were all able to get together on a weekend or something.
So you didn't
For
go
the most,
back fall semester of last year, right?
yeah, we
So you
couldn't
you
come
were
on
at home
campus.
too?
Yeah, I was at home. Everyone was pretty much at home. Like I said, we were able to like, just a couple of random times just get together. We were all kind of just working out on our own, like individual stuff. But it happened to work out that in the spring, they had students back on campus, and then they allowed sports teams, even though we weren't competing, they allowed us to practice, and that was just awesome because it was, the I think there were like 12, 14 of us, something like that, and we got to have that experience of having last spring to prepare together, to practice together, to also even just like bond, which a lot of Ivy League schools, like I said, they had guys take gap years that they didn't have that opportunity. And so I actually think that experience, even though like it sucked not getting to play, because we were still able to be together and have a couple of months of practice together, and spends a lot of time hanging out. Like as a result of that, I think that actually contributed a lot to our success this year. Like that, and I think that's really why we were such a good team is because we were just like super connected, super tight knit group, and a lot of that was founded like last spring when we were, able to be together even despite COVID.
It was kind of like us last year. So similar to you guys, I feel like we were kind of just following in the Ivy League steps. Like for the fall semester, we weren't allowed to go back.
Mhm.
I ended up living down the shore with like two of my teammates here. So like, I was working out with them on the
Yeah,
side, like going to just random gyms, working out. And then like in the spring, they're bringing us back. Then we're like, you guys aren't going to play any games. Like we're not going to have any games either.
Mhm.
So we just practiced every day. And for us,
Yeah,
like I remember like the first 2 weeks of practice, we didn't even practice with a basketball. Like we were just running around the gym,
yeah. It
running
sounds like
plays
we were,
without a
yeah, almost
basketball.
exactly the same. Yeah.
And we were like, what is going on? And then eventually like we started adding more. Like, did you guys do lifts too, I assume? Like pretty much everything except for the games, like your schedule wise was like the
Yeah,
same.
pretty much. Yeah. Like our
Yeah.
practices definitely weren't as long or as intense as,
Mhm.
a
Yeah, same
normal
with
season.
us.
But yeah, it was like the same as like a regular, almost like felt like a preseason.
Yeah, it was like an extended, it was like a 3 or 4 month preseason that was like
Yeah.
never ending, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because like the whole time we're like, all right, we kind of want to play a game now. And then we almost had a game scheduled against Anya and Dickinson actually, but
Really?
they then like the first time we test like some kids on our team tested positive for COVID, and then so we rescheduled the game and then go down there and then like, oh yeah, some of our kids tested positive. So we just had no games. So it was like
Really?
it was hard getting like, I don't know about you, but for us, it was like at the end of it, it was starting to get hard to go to practice every day because it was like such a commitment and it was like the time commitment was pretty much still the same, but like we weren't playing any games. It's like, did you feel that too?
Not really. Because like I said, our practices weren't quite as long.
Mhm.
Um, and again, like one of the things that I said like really benefited us is like our team is just like super close this year. And I think that played a big role in our success this season. Just like we had a super tight knit group. And so like even when we were at practice, like we kind of realized like we were in it together and like we had to make the best of like a tough situation. So yeah, I can see, what you're saying, but I didn't really feel any of that, to be honest with us.
Now, because of you guys taking off, did anybody in your team end up transferring, end up leaving? Because I saw a
Yeah,
bunch
so
of
we had,
Ivy League guys ended up going to other schools just because they wanted to play basketball.
I think there was like a kid from Columbia or something who did that, who like transferred out as soon as like the like
Mhm.
COVID hit and like got to play last season because he went to a different school. But we didn't have anyone do that. We did have our seniors last year because they had only played 3 years. They would have had a fourth year of eligibility, but you can't play as a grad student in the Ivy League. So they ended up being able to grad transfer. One of them went to University of Hawaii. One went to Loyola Chicago, and they both
Oh
did really
wow.
well this year. I think they were both were like honorable mention all conference. Obviously, the one at Loyola Chicago got to play in the tournament this year. So I mean, they both had like awesome seasons and like really enjoyed their experiences.
I mean, you guys even bounced back really, really well. Like for taking that year off, first place
Mhm.
in the regular season, like 12-2. Like, I mean, you fell a little bit short in the championship game, but still, like you guys had a great season for all that time, not having any games. People don't realize how hard it is to not play in a game for so long and then all of a sudden get back to a game schedule. It's like a big adjustment from one year to the next.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, and we honestly like I think I was a little bit surprised by how we did like even in the non-conference considering how long it had been
Mhm.
since we had played like our first actual game was against a D3 school that we won pretty easily.
Who'd you guys
Um,
play?
it was Rutgers Camden. So like
Oh,
not
okay,
even,
okay.
you
That's
know,
like a hometown game for you too.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, so we won that game pretty easily. Then our second game was against University of South Carolina, which is just like really
It's
big
a yeah.
athletic dudes. It was like yeah, they were a pretty good team. I think they were like middle of the pack in the SEC this year. And we won that game. Um, and it's like, holy crap, like we took this year off and we can still like hang with these teams. And then we also, a couple weeks later, we flew to Oregon and beat Oregon State as well. And like at some point along there, we kind of realized that like, shoot, this is like a special group of seniors, a special group of guys. Like maybe we have something here.
Kind of shows like how you guys came together and bonded during those rough times and like really came
Yeah,
together as a group to push
for
forward
sure.
for the success of the team, the program. So
Yes.
like the game against Yale, like how tough of a loss was that for your team? Like how did you guys feel after
It
that?
was, yeah, that was honestly like probably one of the toughest losses I think I've ever had to kind of deal with. Like I still think about it like, over a week later, I'll
Hmm.
sometimes just be like trying to do schoolwork and then just like start staring off into space and like thinking about like, damn, like I wish we'd won that game. Like that was just super, super tough because I keep like saying it because our coach used the term a lot. Like we had like a really special team this year. I felt like our senior class was like unbelievable. Like everyone knew their role so well. Everything just like went perfectly. And we felt like anything short of going to the tournament was going to be like a disappointment for us. And like we
Wait,
still did accomplish a lot, but it's still like it stinks that it kind of ended the way it did, especially because we lost on Sunday to Yale. We got back to campus, and then 12 hours later, we had to hop back on a bus to go to Virginia to play VCU in the NIT. And um, then we lost that game as well, and suddenly it's over. So we went from, expecting to, go to the tournament and have at least another week or so of the season, and to be around each other. And I keep saying like our group was like super close, so like we wanted that time to again just like be together for a longer period, and to have it just end like really abruptly. Like it went from playing for the title to season over in 2 days, and so that really really was tough. Like I said, I'm still really not over that at all, and I don't know, if I ever will be, because I felt like this year's team definitely deserved to have a shot in the tournament.
you guys can all learn like you guys got a lot of people coming back, so you guys are gonna be able to learn from like this experience and
Yeah,
stuff and come back next year even stronger. What was like the feeling in the locker room like after the loss to VCU in the NIT?
the yeah, I mean, before I talk about that, like what you were saying about like coming back stronger, like that's the one
Yeah.
thing I keep trying to take from this is like, use coming up just short this year's motivation for next year to, next year we gotta do it, we gotta get the job done.
Yeah.
And I think we have definitely a good shot at that. So that's gonna always be like in the back of our minds, trying to get back to where we thought we were supposed to be this year. But after VCU, honestly, I think VCU was nowhere near like as tough of a loss, I think, as Yale. Not because like we didn't expect to win, like we thought we had a chance to beat VCU, but it was honestly like we like what we were playing for the whole year was to win that game against Yale and to make it to the NCAA tournament. So we had kind of already not, reached our goal. And then I don't want to say we didn't care too much about the VCU game. Obviously, like we wanted to win, and like if you go to the NIT Final Four, you play in Madison Square Garden. So like that was obviously our goal is to make it there. But it felt like there wasn't really any pressure on us because at that point, like we already hadn't fulfilled our goal. So we were just at that point, the VCU game was just another chance to be, out on the court together, and like kind of regardless of the outcome, that was going to be the point of it was to be together for an extra couple of days. So honestly, like the locker room was not like it was sad because it was our last time as a team together, but it was like more of like kind of we were kind of reflecting upon our time together in that locker room afterwards. Like, it was like the year after Yale was silent. After VCU, we were all just like going around like talking about like how much we love this season, how much we love the seniors, stuff like that. So it was honestly like it wasn't as sad as I really expected it to be. It was more like, wow, we made it here. Like this is the end, but like this was an unbelievable season.
Yeah,
So
no, I feel that. I really relate to like a lot you just said because kind of like we went through the same experience last year. Just like you're practicing every day with your team, like the teams you get so close when you're just with each other every day,
Yeah.
hours every day. So like we were so close with all the seniors, and then this year we didn't really have that great of a year, up and down,
Mhm.
up and down. But like that last game when we lost, like we really wanted to win it, but we were more sad. Not that we lost, but it was the last opportunity, the last time that we were going to be able to take the court
Yeah.
with like a group of guys that we've been with for 3 years, we're
Yeah.
so close
Really.
with. It's just like it's just so disappointing.
Yeah.
But kind of like you said earlier, it's like you take the experiences that you have this year and you apply them to next year and just keep on getting better, keep on
Yeah.
improving so that
Mhm.
we don't have that same feeling that we had this year again next
Yeah.
year.
Just kind of, you have to kind of take that disappointment and turn into like some form of motivation for the
Yeah,
next season.
exactly. So like this past summer, you got the chance to play for the Slovakian national team. So if I remember correctly, your mom is Slovakian, right? And she played
Yeah.
basketball there.
Yep.
She also
She,
where did she play here? She played in the States too, right?
yeah. So she played, obviously, yeah, in Slovakia growing up. Um, and I think she played for the national team as well. I think she might have played for like a local professional team, and then she came over to the U.S. at basically college age to come play at St. Joe's in Philly. And then I don't think she was ever like honestly planning to stay in the U.S., but like she met my dad and ended up staying, and you know,
Yeah.
now I have Slovak citizenship through her, and I'm able to go and play there in the summer, which is obviously a cool experience that not a lot of people, especially in the
Yeah.
U.S., have.
How was that experience? Can you like go into some detail about like how like the basketball experience, like beyond basketball, how different it is over there from like here?
Sure, it's really interesting because I have like because I still have a ton of family in Slovakia. I've gone there pretty much every year of my life,
Hmm.
just in the summer for like vacation to see my family. Usually I would go for around like 2 weeks or so. And like I grew up, like my mom taught me the language as a kid, and so I've always known how to speak it and stuff. But it's funny though, like I would always go over there in the summer, and it would be 2 weeks of like literally vacation. So like I wouldn't, play any basketball. I wouldn't do anything basketball related. And I always remember like I would come back from that and like have to like get back in the rhythm of shooting and stuff like that. So then it was suggested at one point, I think when I was like 14 or 15, like, oh, maybe you could try and play for like the U16 team. And that ended up not working out. And like, oh, well, like, whatever. And then the opportunity came up again uh, when I think it was 16 or 17. My my grandfather, so my mom's dad, knows like he still knows a lot of people in like the Slovak Basketball Federation just from his time coaching, and all of his kids play basketball, things like that. So he still knows a bunch of people, and he got in contact with a guy who was like in charge of the youth teams, and we met with him one summer like a couple years ago, and then the next summer I ended up going and playing for the U18 team. That was the year before my freshman year. So right after I got out of high school, I went over there, and I got to play for the U18 team for the one tournament they had was just like the European Championships. And then the following year was COVID. And then this summer I was able to go over there again to play for the U20 team. They didn't have the regular European Championships. They called it like the European Challengers. And it was basically just like they split all of the European teams into like 6 different like groups or pods or whatever. And they just sent them all to one location, and you would play against like 4 or 5 other teams over the course of like a week. So that's what I did this summer. I was able to go and I played 5 games with the U20 team this summer.
That's a that's a great experience, like not even for just basketball, just like a whole life experience. Like, so how long did you stay over there for? Where like it's like, do you go for like a couple weeks at a time, come back, or do you go for like a couple months?
So I was there maybe 7 weeks. I think it was, I got there. I got there. I worked out for like a week or so with just a trainer in town that I forget who got me in touch with, but it was like a pretty well known trainer. that I worked out with for about a week. And then after that we had like 3 or 4 weeks of training camp and then a week of like the competition basically. So I think that was like 6 weeks in total. And I stayed another week just to like spend time with family afterwards. So yeah, I think it was about 7 weeks in total. And so yeah, I mean, it was most of my summer. I didn't really have time to do much else over the summer, but it was definitely worth it. Like I think a big motivation behind it was like the fact that there was COVID and we didn't have a season last year. So it was like I got there and I played in a game, and it was literally the first time I had been on a basketball court with like another team and officials and fans in like 18 months, and it was literally like honestly like one of the most fun experiences of my life. Just I literally is like one of my favorite games ever that I've played. Like I played pretty well, but like that's not really what I remember. It's just like the feeling of like going and being out on a court and competing hard, against another team for the first time in just so long. And it was seriously, like I said, just such an unbelievable feeling. We ended up losing the game. It was really tight, but like I was just like I felt amazing afterwards. I'm like that was just so much fun.
Like when you played there, was the games in Slovakia or were you like going from different country to different country, like traveling around?
So we this year we didn't have any games in Slovakia. We actually so usually what we would do before the like European like championship or what they call the Challenger this year games is have a couple of like not really scrimmages but like preparation games either in Slovakia or we would go to another country. This year we for whatever reason they couldn't fit them in the schedule, so we just kind of went after 3 or 4 weeks of practice and just went and played. But the games were in Hungary. But actually, like the way it worked out, Slovakia borders Hungary, and the part of Hungary we went to was like pretty close to Slovakia. So it was literally an hour bus ride
It's not
to
bad at all.
yeah to the town where we were playing, and so we stayed there for the week. And I think it was like 5 games in 6 days that we played. But also, like for example, when I went there for U18s, we had I think we had 6 preparation games before even the tournament we had, which was another 8 games. So I ended up playing that summer. This summer I only had 5 games. That summer I had 14 over the course of the same time period, like 6 or 7 weeks. Um, and so when I was there last time, the preparation games we had 2 in Slovakia, 2 were in Hungary, and then 2 were in Romania. So those were kind of we were traveling all over for those, and that's I think what it would look like in a more standard year. I think they just had trouble scheduling them because of COVID and stuff this year.
Like when you were traveling from like country to country, could you notice anything like culturally different, like each time you would go to a new country?
Um, I hate to say that, like, not really, but I think that's more just kind of attributable to the fact that like we would go and like I'm sure you've done like for AU and stuff, like you travel
Mhm.
and like you're kind of just there. I guess not really AU, but I guess like more college as well. Like you travel and you're kind of just there for the game, and you're not really getting to do a whole lot besides just like hanging out in the hotel and like
It's
going to the
like
gym.
basketball, sleep, eat, and then that's about it. I feel like on road
Yeah, so
trips.
I didn't get to like do much like quote unquote cultural stuff, unfortunately. I
Mhm.
wish I had, but like it was still kind of the experience of like going all over Europe and being able to play basketball. Like that's kind of the way I describe it to people. Is like I got to literally just like travel, play basketball, and hang out with like the guys on the team, and like that was it. And it's like that's kind of the dream, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this the other day, but Luka Doncic was on the JJ Redick podcast. He was saying how much different basketball is like overseas compared to America. He was saying like it's so much easier to score like 30 points a game in the NBA than like EuroLeague, for instance. Like when you were
Mhm.
playing over there, did you notice any differences like basketball wise, like in the game?
Yeah, what I always like my dad asked me this, and what I would always tell him is like you can tell the game feels very different over there, but I can't really put my finger on like what exactly it is. But like there's definitely when you're on the court, something feels very like different from when you're playing in the US. And again, like I really wish I had a good answer to this, but like I'm not sure what it is, but something about playing over there, it's just like a very different style of basketball.
That's what a lot of people say, and you kind
Yeah,
of can see it. Like you played with foreign kids obviously before. Like I feel like when they come to America, like they noticeably have a different game than like
yeah.
all
And
the
I
other
can't put
Americans.
my finger on it. I don't know why. Like, what is the exact difference? But there definitely is one
Mhm.
for sure.
So, like, were there any other Americans on your team, or were you the only one?
I was the only one. There were a couple of kids who um, like would go to school or like play in other countries, but like they were all like Slovaks who were like born there and everything. I was the only American. There was, I think, one who played on the like two age groups below team. There was an American. Uh, and I believe actually I heard from a couple of kids that like he didn't speak any Slovak and he had to speak English with them the whole time. That was like the one real like big advantage that I had was that I grew up speaking Slovak and like I knew the language. So I would go over there and like the 6 weeks that I'm there, I don't speak a lick of English, which was actually like really good for me, like in terms of like my language development. Like I actually got a lot better at speaking Slovak just because I was around, you know, all the Slovak guys and I had no option. Like they all know English, but like they're not going to speak it if they don't have to. And so by being around them and speaking Slovak all the time, I actually got way better at the language, which was kind of cool.
Did you play against any other Americans when you were over there? Was it did you see someone be like, oh yeah, I've seen this kid, like I played against him before? Did you see any of that?
I did not. There were the closest like I kind of came to that was there were this year and 2 years ago as well. There were like a couple of kids who would like also in my kind of situation where they would like go and end up playing Division 1 in the US and like I'll check in on them just to like see how they're doing at their respective schools. Like a couple of them like I'll get in contact with just like through Instagram or whatever. But no, there was no one like I really knew. I don't think any other countries had Americans on their team that I can think of. But yeah, like I said, there were definitely guys who like came and played in the U.S. That were kind of similar boat as me, who were just kind of there for the summer, and then we're gonna head back to the U.S. to play.
All right, so here's the last question. If you had to tell one story to explain your entire experience in Slovakia from the two previous summers that you played there, what would the story be?
One that I really love is when I was there for the U18 team. We we were not very good, honestly. Like we kind of stunk. I think in the 8 games we played, we were like 1-7. Our one win was by like 5 points against a team that wasn't very good. And like we were talented, but we just never like really kind of fit together very well. We had a pretty different team this past summer. We did a lot better. But yeah, 2 summers ago was not great. Like we didn't do well at all. So, like, so we were 1-7, and I always like the games get streamed on YouTube by FIBA, and I always kind of assumed like who's watching this random game between Slovakia and Luxembourg at like this random time on a Tuesday. And it turns out that there's actually like a really big following, like even for the youth teams. I'm like, who's watching a U18 basketball game? So right after we'd finished the tournament, I had the capital of Slovakia is called Bratislava, and I had some family that was there. So I guess it was my mom's uncle who we went out to lunch with in just like a random restaurant in Bratislava. And he ran into his friend at the restaurant, and his friend comes up to us and is just like like chatting with him or whatever, and then asks about me because like, he noticed I was pretty tall. He's like, "What's is this? Who is this?" He's like, "This is my grandson," or and he's like, he plays basketball, and the guy goes like, "Oh my goodness, like don't even talk to me about basketball right now. Like I was watching our U18 team. It was a disaster. It was like so like embarrassing. They lost all these games this summer, and I'm just there like, yeah, that was my team. Like I hate to say
Crazy.
it. Yeah, that was us.
So you just like walked, you just talking about your game, and he didn't even know. How did that randomly just happen like that?
I don't know, but it was more. I think what I gather from that story is just like the people who like watch basketball over there are like super into it, and like the basketball culture is actually like, very, very prominent in Europe. And like you hear about it a lot. But yeah, like there's, we were having like thousands of people, random people watching all of our games and who like were genuinely like super invested in it and like want to, see who are the up and coming talents and stuff in Slovak basketball and are really keyed into our games. And like, so there's actually people who like will make kind of a big deal out of it. Like like there's a website. It's just called like basket.sk. It's like the big
Yeah, I've seen that
basketball
site
website
before.
in the country. Yeah. And they posted like pretty detailed articles about all of our games and were like interviewing guys after the games and stuff. Like they would every time, not every game, but like a couple of times after games, they would like call me and like ask like, what did you think of the game today? Like, what do you think worked well for you guys? So like, that's genuinely like Slovakia is a small country that's not even like really great at basketball, quite frankly, but they're like all just like the people who are into it are super, super into it. And it's like actually a really great basketball community over there. So that is one of my favorite stories about playing over there is just like, you don't realize how much like basketball means to a lot of people over there. So that was really, really cool, I thought.
Yeah, that's actually it's a really cool story how he was just randomly just watching your game and he was talking to you about it after. But like you said, like basketball is a strong culture worldwide, especially in Europe now. I feel like a lot of these like other countries are starting to really, really get involved in it.
Yeah.
Just want to thank you again, Jake, for coming on. It was a blast having
Thanks
you
for having me.
on.
This is fun. Yeah, it's good to catch up.
Yeah, it was great catching up with you. And that's it. So I'm gonna end the recording.